Amara Jackson, a 16-year-old Black honors student, sits trembling in the opulent office of SkyElite Airline's headquarters, tears streaming down her face as she replays the video that's now gone viral, showing her begging for water during a medical emergency, while flight attendant Karen Whitmore sneers, "Your kind needs to learn patience." The airline executives shift uncomfortably as the door suddenly flies open. Lawrence Jackson, SkyElite's secret majority owner, who's kept his identity hidden for years, stands there with thunder in his eyes. "Play it again," he commands. What happens when racism meets the ultimate power shift? Before we begin this shocking story of discrimination and justice, let me know where you're watching from. If you believe in equality and justice for all, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on more eye-opening stories that expose the truth about racism in America today. Lawrence Jackson hadn't always been a billionaire. Growing up in Detroit's roughest neighborhood, he'd fought for every opportunity, building his tech empire from scratch while facing discrimination at every turn. Now, at 52, his salt and pepper beard framed a face that had seen both struggle and triumph. Few knew that over the past 5 years, he had methodically acquired 63% of SkyElite Airlines shares through complex shell companies and blind trusts. A meticulous man, Lawrence preferred to observe how companies truly operated before revealing his ownership. "You only see an organization's true character when they think no one important is watching," he often told his daughter. 16-year-old Amara Jackson had inherited her father's brilliant mind and unwavering determination. Despite attending an elite private school and living in a mansion in Potomac Hills, she faced racism daily. Teachers expressed surprise at her academic excellence. Classmates touched her hair without permission. Security guards followed her. In stores while white friends shopped freely. Lawrence had taught her resilience but also documented every slight. "Evidence matters," he'd remind her, "because people will always try to gaslight you about racism." Today marked the beginning of their college tour. MIT, Stanford, and Yale, all eagerly awaiting the brilliant young scientist who had already published research on renewable energy. Lawrence had suggested they fly economy class on SkyElite for at least part of the journey. "I want to see how they treat regular passengers," he explained during breakfast in their sunlit kitchen. "You mean regular Black passengers," Amara corrected, adding blueberries to her oatmeal. She understood her father's methods. As a Black business leader, he'd learned to observe before acting. "We'll travel separately," Lawrence continued. "I'll take the business class flight as planned. You'll go economy. Just another day of field research." He winked, but Amara detected the familiar sadness beneath his humor, the constant need to prove systems were fair. Amara packed her medication alongside her laptop. Since childhood, mild asthma had required careful management, particularly staying hydrated during flights. Her doctor had emphasized this before their trip. "Dehydration at altitude can trigger an attack," Dr. Williams had warned. "Always keep water with you." At Reagan National Airport, Lawrence discreetly watched from a distance as Amara approached the SkyElite counter. He frowned as the agent scrutinized her ID longer than necessary, asking repetitive questions about her ticket purchase. When a white teenage girl approached minutes later, the same agent processed her boarding pass with a smile and minimal questions. Once at the gate, Amara texted her father, already counting microaggressions. "We're at 3 and haven't even boarded." The boarding announcement came and Amara lined up in her assigned group. When she reached the scanner, the gate agent frowned. "This doesn't look right. Step aside, please." "But it's Group 4. That's what you just called." Amara pointed to her boarding pass. The agent's voice sharpened. "I need to verify something. Please step aside." 3 white passengers who had been behind Amara were processed without question. 5 minutes passed before the agent reluctantly returned her boarding pass. "It's fine. You can board now." Entering the jetway, Amara glanced back to see her father in the business class line, his expression neutral but eyes watchful. He gave her the slightest nod of encouragement. Neither realized this routine test was about to become something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. Karen Whitmore had served as a SkyElite flight attendant for 17 years, building a reputation for excellence in customer service among certain passengers. What her personnel file didn't reveal were the 23 complaints quietly buried by management, all from minority passengers alleging discriminatory treatment. Karen believed there were deserving passengers and problem passengers. The distinction, though she'd never admit it publicly, aligned suspiciously with racial lines. As passengers settled into the Washington to Boston flight, Karen's practiced smile flashed selectively. "Welcome aboard. Anything you need, just ask," she told an elderly white couple in row 14. When Amara smiled from seat 17B moments later, Karen's eyes slid past her without acknowledgement. 30 minutes after takeoff, Amara pressed her call button. Her throat felt uncomfortably dry, an early warning sign she recognized. Karen passed by twice responding to white passengers several rows away while ignoring the illuminated button above Amara. After 15 minutes, Amara politely raised her hand when Karen passed. "Excuse me, could I please have some water?" Karen's response came without eye contact. "Drink service hasn't started yet. You'll need to wait." "I understand, but I have a medical," Amara began. "Everyone has to wait their turn," Karen interrupted, already moving toward first class. 10 minutes later, Karen began serving from the front. Amara watched as passengers received drinks, noting that several had requested after she had. When the cart finally reached her row, Karen served the white businessman in the aisle seat, then began pushing forward. "Excuse me," Amara said firmly. "I asked for water earlier. I have asthma and need to stay hydrated." Karen's lips tightened. "We're moving as quickly as possible. You'll have to be patient like everyone else." The businessman beside Amara frowned. "She did ask before me." "I heard her." Karen's smile returned instantly when addressing him. "Sir, we're serving in a particular order. I'm sure you understand." As the cart moved on, Amara felt the familiar tightness in her chest beginning. She controlled her breathing, knowing stress could worsen symptoms. The businessman beside her, Mark Cunningham, seemed troubled by the interaction. "That wasn't right," he said quietly. "Here, take mine, I don't need it yet." He offered his untouched water cup. As Amara gratefully accepted, Karen spun around from 3 rows ahead. "Sir, that water is for paying customers only." Mark blinked in confusion. "She is a paying customer." Karen marched back, snatching the cup from Amara's hand, water splashing onto her shirt. "This isn't how things work. You don't get to decide who gets served when." "I paid for my ticket just like everyone else," Amara responded, keeping her voice level despite her racing heart. "Your kind needs to learn patience," Karen hissed, quiet enough that only those in immediate proximity heard. Mark's eyes widened. "What did you just say to her?" Karen's expression shifted instantly to professional concern. "Sir, please don't get involved. Some passengers try to create incidents where none exist. Have you ever witnessed someone being treated unfairly because of their race? Comment number 1 if you've seen discrimination in action like what Amara is experiencing, or number 2 if you've been lucky enough to avoid seeing such behavior. Hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves equal treatment regardless of skin color. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that expose the uncomfortable truths in our society. As Amara's breathing becomes more labored and Karen continues to ignore her medical needs, will anyone else step up to help? Or will this mistreatment escalate into something even more dangerous for our young protagonist? Amara's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her phone. The businessman beside her, Mark, watched with concern as she navigated to the video recording function. Her throat felt increasingly tight, each breath requiring more effort than the last. "Are you okay?" Mark whispered, noting her distress. Amara nodded slightly, positioning her phone discreetly on her lap, camera angled toward the aisle. She needed evidence. Her father had taught her that. When Karen returned with the beverage cart to serve the remaining rows, Amara pressed record. "Excuse me," Amara said, her voice slightly hoarse. "I really need water now. It's a medical necessity for my asthma." Karen's eyes narrowed when she noticed the phone. "Are you recording me? That's against airline policy." "Actually, it's not," Mark interjected, pulling up SkyElite's terms of service on his tablet. "Passengers are permitted to record if there's a safety concern." Karen's professionally cultivated smile vanished entirely. "Put that phone away immediately, or I'll have you removed from this flight for non-compliance with crew instructions." Instead of complying, Amara held the phone steadily. I'm documenting that I've repeatedly requested water for a medical condition and been denied. Karen's face flushed crimson. This is disruptive behavior. I won't tolerate it on my flight. Her voice carried through the cabin, drawing attention from nearby passengers. The only disruption I see is you refusing water to someone who needs it, an older woman commented from across the aisle. Karen pointed a finger at Amara. This passenger is being combative and interfering with my duties. Other flight attendants began converging on the scene. Brian, a younger crew member, arrived first. What's happening, Karen? Before Amara could explain, Karen launched into her version. This passenger is refusing to follow instructions and creating a disturbance. She's threatening me with recording. Brian looked uncertainly between them. Despite his initial hesitation, he ultimately sided with his colleague. Ma'am, you need to stop recording and comply with the crew's instructions. I'm having an asthma attack, Amara explained, her breathing becoming audibly labored. I've been asking for water for almost an hour. A middle-aged Asian woman stood up from 2 rows back. I'm a physician. Let me check on her. The doctor, Dr. Lin, quickly assessed Amara's condition. She's showing signs of respiratory distress. Get her water immediately and her carry-on for medication. Karen crossed her arms. Doctor or not, you need to return to your seat. We're handling this situation. This is a medical situation, not a behavioral one, Dr. Lin insisted. Karen turned to Brian. Call the captain. Tell him we have an unruly passenger refusing to comply with crew instructions. Amara's breathing grew increasingly strained. She reached into her pocket for her emergency inhaler, taking a puff while continuing to record. The medication provided minimal relief. Without water, her symptoms persisted. This is ridiculous, Mark said, standing now. She needs medical attention, not punishment. Sir, return to your seat immediately, Karen commanded. More passengers began voicing concerns. Some recorded the unfolding scene on their phones. Others demanded that Amara receive water. The cabin atmosphere grew tense as dividing lines formed, most passengers supporting Amara, while the flight crew defensively backed Karen. All of you need to calm down and comply with crew instructions, Karen announced loudly. Anyone continuing to interfere will be reported. The plane's intercom crackled. This is your captain speaking. We'll be making an unscheduled landing in Philadelphia to address a situation in the cabin. Please remain seated with seatbelts fastened. Amara's eyes widened in disbelief. She was being treated as a security threat for asking for water and documenting discrimination. Her breathing became more labored as anxiety compounded her asthma symptoms. Put your phone away before security takes it, Karen warned with a satisfied smirk. They don't take kindly to troublemakers, Dr. Lin protested vigorously. This is a medical emergency, not a security issue. She needs treatment, not removal. The decision has been made, Karen replied coldly. Perhaps next time she'll think twice before causing problems. As the plane began its descent, Amara sent a desperate text to her father, but the message showed as undelivered as the plane changed altitude. Surrounded by supportive strangers but targeted by authority figures, she felt a familiar helplessness that no amount of wealth or achievement could shield her from. In business class, Lawrence Jackson reviewed acquisition proposals on his tablet, occasionally checking his phone for messages from Amara. Their ritual for these testing flights included periodic check-ins, small reassurances that all was well. When 45 minutes passed without communication, a sliver of concern worked its way into his thoughts. Lawrence tried sending a text. How's the flight? All good back there? The message remained undelivered. Poor connection, he reasoned. Though SkyElite advertised reliable in-flight Wi-Fi as a premium feature, the business-class flight attendant Sandra approached with practiced elegance. More champagne, sir? No, thank you, Lawrence replied. Is there any issue with the Wi-Fi connection today? Not that I'm aware of, sir. Let me check for you. She returned moments later. Everything seems operational. Perhaps the device you're trying to reach is powered down. Amara would never turn off her phone during their experiments. Something felt wrong. Lawrence unbuckled his seatbelt. Excuse me. I need to check on a family member in economy. Sandra's friendly expression faltered slightly. I'm afraid we're experiencing some turbulence, sir. The captain has requested. Passengers remain seated. Lawrence glanced out the window at the perfectly clear sky. I don't feel any turbulence. It's at higher altitudes, Sandra explained smoothly. I can deliver a message if you'd like. That won't be necessary. I'll wait until the seatbelt sign is off. Lawrence settled back, increasingly uneasy. 20 minutes later, the intercom announced their unscheduled landing. No explanation was provided to business class passengers, but Lawrence overheard Sandra whispering to another attendant about a situation in economy. His parental instinct flared. As the plane began its descent, Lawrence stood again. Sir, please remain seated during landing, Sandra insisted. My daughter is in economy. I need to make sure she's okay. I'm sorry, but I cannot allow you to go back there right now. It's against safety protocols. Lawrence's normally diplomatic demeanor hardened. Is there a problem in economy class that I should know about? Everything is under control, Sandra assured him, though her eyes darted away. As they spoke, Lawrence noticed a message finally delivering to his phone. From Amara, sent 30 minutes earlier. Dad, flight attendant refusing water, having asthma symptoms, recording everything. I need to get to my daughter now, Lawrence stated, his voice carrying the authority that had built empires. 2 male flight attendants appeared, positioning themselves in the aisle. Sir, return to your seat immediately, or we'll notify security upon landing. Forced to comply temporarily, Lawrence observed a disturbing interaction 3 rows ahead. A Middle Eastern passenger requested water, which Sandra denied, despite serving the white passenger beside him moments before. Excuse me, the man said politely. I believe you missed me. Service is complete in this section, Sandra replied curtly. But you just served him, the man pointed out. Are you questioning how I do my job? Sandra's voice carried a warning. Lawrence discreetly began recording on his phone. The pattern was unmistakable, the same discriminatory behavior Amara had likely encountered. As the plane touched down in Philadelphia, he captured 3 more instances of differential treatment based on apparent ethnicity. The captain's voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we've landed in Philadelphia to remove a disruptive passenger. We apologize for the inconvenience and will resume our journey shortly. Lawrence's blood ran cold. He knew instantly who the disruptive passenger was. Tucking his phone away, he prepared for battle. The wealth and power he'd accumulated over decades had been for precisely this moment, to protect his child from the injustice he couldn't shield her from. As passengers were instructed to remain seated, Lawrence watched airport security board the plane and moved toward economy class. He'd faced discrimination in boardrooms, on streets, in stores, but never had it threatened his daughter so directly. Whatever happened next, SkyElite Airlines would learn a costly lesson about who really held power on this flight. Airport security officers boarded the plane with military precision, their faces impassive as they marched down the aisle toward economy class. Passengers murmured nervously, smartphones recording the unexpected drama. Lawrence unbuckled his seatbelt, but a flight attendant blocked his path. Sir, all passengers must remain seated. My daughter is back there, Lawrence insisted, his voice carrying the weight of barely contained fury. Security will handle any issues, she replied mechanically. In economy class, 4 officers surrounded Amara's seat. Karen stood nearby, arms crossed triumphantly. This is the disruptive passenger, Karen announced loudly. She refused crew instructions and created a hostile environment. The lead officer, a stocky man with a buzz cut, addressed Amara. Ma'am, we need you to gather your belongings and come with us. Amara's breathing came in audible wheezes now. I'm having an asthma attack. I just asked for water. She's lying, Karen interjected. She became aggressive when asked to follow standard procedures. Dr. Lin stood again. I'm a physician. This young woman needs medical attention, not removal. Ma'am, return to your seat or you'll be removed as well, an officer warned. Mark, the businessman, held up his phone. I have the whole thing recorded. The flight attendant refused her water despite knowing about her medical condition. Karen's face flushed. He's recording illegally. Confiscate that phone. While security hesitated, confused by conflicting accounts, Karen seized the opportunity. This passenger threatened me. She said she'd make me pay for not serving her first. Amara shook her head, unable to speak through her worsening symptoms. Let's go, the lead officer decided, grabbing Amara's arm. Wait, Dr. Lin protested. She needs medical attention right now. Ignoring the doctor's pleas, 2 officers lifted Amara from her seat. Her phone clattered to the floor, still recording. Karen quickly kicked it under a seat, but not before. Mark noticed and retrieved it when the officers passed. As Amara was escorted down the aisle, passengers recorded the scene from multiple angles. Some shouted protests, while others sat in uncomfortable silence. The injustice unfolded with horrifying efficiency, documented in real time by dozens of devices. In business class, Lawrence finally pushed past the attendants attempting to block him. That's my daughter, he shouted, rushing toward the officers. Sir, step back, one officer commanded. I'm her father. She has asthma. A female officer placed her hand on her taser. Step back now or you'll be detained as well. You don't understand, Lawrence insisted. She needs her medication. Are you threatening an officer? The lead security man challenged. Another officer stepped between them. Sir, your daughter is being removed for disruptive behavior. You can meet her in the terminal or be removed yourself. Lawrence, calculating his options with the strategic mind that had built his fortune, realized direct confrontation would only worsen Amara's situation. I'll meet her in the terminal, he conceded, his voice ice cold. As Amara was escorted through the jetway, she struggled to breathe. Without proper hydration and with increasing stress, her asthma symptoms had escalated dangerously. Passengers, exiting to stretch their legs, captured footage of her distress, some posting clips to social media before the plane even resumed its journey. In the terminal, under the harsh fluorescent lights, Karen delivered her final accusations to the airport police who had joined the security team. She was combative, refused to follow safety instructions, and incited other passengers against the crew. Amara tried to speak but could only produce a frightening wheeze. Her lips had taken on a bluish tinge. She needs a hospital, Lawrence demanded, finally reaching the group. She's having a severe asthma attack. And you are? An officer questioned skeptically. Her father, Lawrence Jackson, Karen scoffed. He could be anyone. They don't look alike. Check her ID and mine, Lawrence insisted, reaching for his wallet. Slow movements, an officer warned, hand hovering near his weapon. While Lawrence carefully retrieved identification, Amara's condition deteriorated rapidly. Her eyes widened in panic as she struggled for air, then suddenly went limp, collapsing onto the terminal floor. For a moment, everyone froze in shock. Then Dr. Lin, who had followed them off the plane, rushed forward. She's in respiratory failure. Call emergency services now. Have you ever witnessed someone in a position of authority abuse their power? Comment number 1 if you've seen someone misuse their authority like Karen did to Amara. Comment number 2 if you've ever had to stand up against such injustice. If you believe everyone deserves medical help regardless of race or background, hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to see how Lawrence will fight back against this heartbreaking discrimination. As Amara fights for her life on the cold terminal floor, will justice finally arrive, or will the system continue to protect those who abuse their power? What evidence will emerge from the passengers' recordings, and how will Lawrence use his hidden influence to hold SkyElite accountable? Clear the area, Dr. Lin commanded as she knelt beside Amara's unconscious form. The terminal's polished floor reflected the gathering crowd of concerned onlookers and voyeuristic smartphone cameras. EMTs rushed toward them, pushing a gurney, through the parting spectators. Lawrence knelt opposite Dr. Lin, his composed exterior masking the hurricane of fear and rage within. She has her emergency inhaler in her right pocket, he told the medical team. A young EMT administered the medication while his partner prepared an oxygen mask. BP's dropping. We need to move now. I'm her father, Lawrence said firmly. I'm coming with you. A police officer stepped forward. "We need to verify your relationship first. Do you have documentation?" "Are you serious?" Dr. Lin exploded. "She's in critical condition." "Standard procedure," the officer replied impassively. Lawrence produced his driver's license and Amara's student ID. "Lawrence and Amara Jackson. Now let me accompany my daughter." The officer examined the IDs with deliberate slowness, while precious seconds ticked by. "These could be faked. We'll need to verify." "Her oxygen saturation is dangerously low," an EMT reported. "We can't wait." "Then I'm going with her now," Lawrence stated, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. "Verify whatever you want afterward." As the EMTs wheeled Amara toward the waiting ambulance, Lawrence strode alongside them. 2 security officers followed, closely, treating the medical emergency as a potential security threat. Karen watched from a distance, her expression shifting from satisfaction to uncertainty as she witnessed the severity of Amara's condition. A SkyElite supervisor had joined her, already working damage control as video clips began circulating online. "You should return to the aircraft," the supervisor advised Karen. "We'll handle this." At Jefferson Hospital, Amara was rushed into emergency treatment while Lawrence battled another layer of bureaucracy. Despite his identification, hospital staff questioned his relationship to Amara, delaying his access to her. "Her last name is Jackson, yours is Jackson, but you don't look like her father," a clerk explained with thinly veiled skepticism. "I adopted her when she was 6, Lawrence lied, knowing a biological explanation would only waste more time. "Check her emergency contact information, I'm listed." After 30 agonizing minutes, verification finally came through. Lawrence was escorted to a treatment room where Amara lay connected to multiple monitoring devices. Her condition had stabilized, but the attending physician didn't mince words. She experienced a severe asthma exacerbation, likely triggered by stress and dehydration. Another 20 minutes without intervention and we might be having a very different conversation. Lawrence nodded grimly. "When can I take her home?" "We need to observe her overnight at minimum," the doctor replied. "She's not out of danger, yet." Alone with his daughter for the first time since the ordeal began, Lawrence gently took her hand. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. This should never have happened." Amara's eyes fluttered open. "Did you get the videos?" she whispered through the oxygen mask. Even now, she thought like his daughter, gathering evidence, building a case. Lawrence shook his head. "Your phone?" Karen kicked it under a seat. "When I dropped it," Amara explained weakly. "But the businessman next to me, Mark, he was recording too." Lawrence nodded. "Rest now. I'll handle everything." While Amara slept, Lawrence discovered the airline had already mobilized its response. A SkyElite representative arrived at the hospital with forms for Lawrence to sign, a non-disclosure agreement and liability waiver in exchange for covering Amara's medical expenses. "SkyElite regrets any misunderstanding," the representative stated robotically. "We take customer safety very seriously." Lawrence didn't bother hiding his contempt. "My daughter nearly died from your flight attendant's discrimination, and you're here with paperwork?" "Sir, we have conflicting accounts of what happened," the representative countered. "We need to investigate fully before assuming any wrongdoing." Lawrence's phone chimed with a news alert. A 10-second clip of Amara being removed from the plane had gone viral, with the caption, "Black teenager removed from flight after asking for water during asthma attack." The representative's phone buzzed simultaneously. His expression tightened as he read the screen. "I'll need to consult with our legal team," he said, hastily gathering his unsigned forms. After he departed, Lawrence contacted his assistant. "Janet, I need everything you can find on SkyElite's handling of discrimination complaints, and get me the contact information for passengers on today's flight 2857. While Janet worked her research magic, Lawrence checked Amara's social media accounts. The comment section had become a battlefield, supportive messages interspersed with racist attacks questioning her character and medical condition. His phone rang. It was Greg Reynolds, Lawrence's inside contact on SkyElite's board, unaware of Lawrence's majority ownership. "Lawrence, this video going around, Is that your daughter? Yes, Lawrence confirmed. Removed from a flight for requesting water during an asthma attack. Christ, Greg muttered. I just got out of an emergency meeting. They're claiming she was disruptive, threatened the crew. She was recording the interaction, Lawrence replied. But her phone disappeared during the removal. That's convenient, Greg noted. Look, they're moving to contain this. Legal is preparing a statement saying they've launched an internal investigation while suggesting your daughter violated their passenger conduct policy. Do they know who I am? Who she is? Lawrence asked. No, Greg confirmed. No connection has been made yet. After hanging up, Lawrence received a message from Janet containing a trove of internal SkyElite documents, complaints, investigations, personnel files. Karen Whitmore's record was particularly revealing. 23 discrimination complaints, all dismissed for insufficient evidence. As he reviewed the files, a hospital administrator entered the room. Mr. Jackson, there are 2 gentlemen from SkyElite's legal department requesting your daughter's phone as evidence in their investigation. Lawrence's eyes narrowed. Evidence for their investigation or evidence to make disappear? They have documentation from the airline claiming her phone contains key evidence of a security incident. The administrator explained uncomfortably. My daughter is a minor, Lawrence stated firmly. They have no right to her property. Please inform them that any future communication should go through my attorneys. After the administrator left, Lawrence received another call, this time from Mark Cunningham, the businessman who had sat beside Amara. Janet had worked quickly. Mr. Jackson, I witnessed everything on that flight. The treatment your daughter received was appalling. I have video of the entire incident. Can you send it to me? Already did, Mark confirmed. I've received dozens of messages from the Airline's legal team demanding I remove it from social media and surrender my unauthorized recording. I thought you should know they're trying to bury this. Lawrence thanked him and ended the call, opening the video attachment. The 12-minute recording showed everything. Karen repeatedly ignoring Amara's requests, the "your kind" comment, the escalation, and finally the discriminatory removal. It was damning evidence of blatant racism and medical neglect. As night fell, Lawrence kept vigil beside his daughter's hospital bed. Outside, SkyElite's PR machine was spinning into action, but they had no idea who they were truly facing. For years, Lawrence had hidden his ownership, watching and documenting how the company operated. Now that knowledge would become his weapon. Dawn broke over Philadelphia as Lawrence paced the hospital room, conducting business in hushed tones while Amara slept. The attending physician had just confirmed she was stable enough for discharge later that day. Outside, news vans lined the hospital entrance. The story of the black teenager removed from a flight after requesting water had ignited a media firestorm. Lawrence contacted Greg Reynolds, his trusted ally on SkyElite's board, without revealing his majority ownership. Greg, what's happening inside? It's chaos, Greg replied. The video has 3 million views. Boycott SkyElite is trending. The CEO called an emergency meeting at headquarters. What's their strategy? Damage control. They're saying the video doesn't show the whole story, that your daughter was repeatedly disruptive before recording began. Lawrence's jaw tightened. And Karen Whitmore? Administrative leave with pay pending investigation. They're portraying her as a dedicated employee with an unblemished record. Despite 23 previous complaints, a pause. How do you know about those? Lawrence deflected. I have resources. What else? Legal is drafting a statement claiming SkyElite has zero tolerance for discrimination while suggesting your daughter misrepresented her medical condition. They're calling her a liar? Between the lines, yes. They're also preparing a defamation suit if you pursue legal action. Lawrence absorbed this information silently. His hidden ownership of SkyElite gave him unprecedented knowledge of company operations, but he needed to be strategic about when to reveal this card. The CEO, Victor Whitman, asked specifically about you, Greg continued. They're running background checks, trying to assess your resources, looking for leverage. What did you tell them? That you're a successful tech entrepreneur who values privacy, nothing about your actual net worth or connections. Good. Keep me posted." After ending the call, Lawrence turned to find Amara awake watching him. "They're going to blame me, aren't they?" she asked quietly. "They'll try," Lawrence admitted. "But we have the truth." "Sometimes that's not enough," Amara replied, wisdom beyond her years shadowing her words. Lawrence sat beside her. "Not this time, I promise you." A nurse entered, with discharge paperwork and instructions for Amara's continued care. As Lawrence completed the forms, his phone buzzed with an email from SkyElite's legal department. A formal notice demanding Amara surrender any recordings of the incident and cease making defamatory statements about the airline or its employees. Lawrence showed it to Amara. "They're scared." "They should be," she replied, a hint of her usual fire returning. By noon, they had checked into a suite at the Four Seasons Philadelphia. Lawrence established a command center in the living area, while Amara rested in the bedroom. His team of attorneys joined virtually, strategizing their response to SkyElite's increasingly aggressive posture. "They've filed for a temporary restraining order preventing public release of any recordings," reported Sandra Chen, Lawrence's chief counsel. "They're claiming it violates privacy laws and their employee conduct." Agreement. Lawrence wasn't surprised. "They want to control the narrative." "It gets worse," Sandra continued. "They've launched a counteroffensive, releasing selective snippets of security footage showing Amara gesturing emphatically, without audio. They're painting her as the aggressor. Where do we stand legally?" "The TRO hearing is tomorrow morning. Until then, technically, Mark Cunningham's video should be taken down." Lawrence nodded. "Make sure he understands the legal ramifications. We'll cover any expenses he incurs." A breaking news alert flashed across Lawrence's tablet. SkyElite releases statement on viral incident. Claims passenger created hostile environment aboard flight. The official statement was carefully crafted. SkyElite Airlines is committed to the safety and comfort of all passengers. After reviewing available evidence, we have determined that the passenger in question repeatedly violated crew instructions, creating a hostile environment that necessitated removal for the safety of all aboard. While we cannot comment on specific medical claims due to privacy concerns, SkyElite follows strict protocols for medical emergencies, which were not properly invoked in this instance. Lawrence showed the statement to his legal team. "They're doubling down." "It gets worse," Sandra said. Social media accounts allegedly belonging to former classmates of Amara are emerging with stories claiming she has a history of playing the race card and faking medical issues for attention. "Coordinated character assassination," Lawrence observed coldly. "Trace those accounts." By evening, Greg Reynolds requested an urgent meeting at the hotel. When he arrived, his usual confident demeanor had been replaced by nervous energy. "They know I've been talking to you," he admitted once they were alone. "Victor called me in, asked if I was feeding you information." "What did you tell him?" "That we've known each other for years. That I was trying to facilitate a quiet resolution." Greg paced the room. "Lawrence, they're building a narrative that will destroy your daughter's reputation. They have media contacts, social media influencers, politicians they've donated to, all ready to support their version." "I expected as much," Lawrence replied calmly. "There's more. They've uncovered you have significant investments in their competitors. They're suggesting this whole incident is a calculated attempt to damage SkyElite's stock value." Lawrence studied his longtime ally. "And what do you think, Greg?" Greg hesitated. "I think SkyElite is too big to take on alone, even for someone with your resources. The CEO is offering a generous settlement if you'll sign an NDA. 8 figures. Enough to make this go away. Make discrimination go away with money? Make a no-win situation go away," Greg corrected. "You're fighting an entire system." "Whose side are you on, Greg?" Greg's expression hardened slightly. "I'm on the side of reality. Victor has offered me the COO position if I help bring this to a quiet resolution. I've worked 20 years for this opportunity." The betrayal, though anticipated, still stung. Lawrence had cultivated Greg as an ally for years, sharing private dinners, family vacations, confidences. Now, when it truly mattered, Greg's ambition revealed his true character. "Congratulations on the promotion," Lawrence said evenly. Greg looked relieved. "So you'll consider the settlement?" "I'll consider all options." After Greg departed, Lawrence received an urgent call from Mark Cunningham. "They've filed a lawsuit against me personally for defamation and violation of privacy laws. They're demanding $1 million in damages unless I publicly recant and say I doctored the video." "Don't worry, we'll handle your legal expenses," Lawrence assured him. "It's not just me," Mark continued. "They're targeting everyone who posted supportive comments or shared the video. It's a scorched earth campaign." In the bedroom, Amara was scrolling through social media on her tablet, her expression growing increasingly troubled. Lawrence found her staring at a viral post with 5 million views, a doctored video splicing footage of her calmly boarding the plane with out-of-context clips of an entirely different black teenager shouting at flight staff on another airline. The caption read, "What SkyElite doesn't want you to see, the real story." "Dad," she whispered, "they're making me into a monster." Lawrence sat beside her, placing a hand over hers. "Remember what I always taught you about power? Those who have it rarely show it until necessary," she recited. "Exactly. SkyElite believes they're fighting a single passenger and her father." Lawrence's expression remained calm, but his eyes held the cold calculation that had built empires. They have no idea who they're really facing. Lawrence Jackson had built his fortune by understanding when to wait and when to strike. As dawn broke on the second day of the crisis, he determined the moment had arrived. In the hotel suite's living room, he addressed his expanded team. A dozen of the country's top civil rights attorneys, PR specialists, and digital forensics experts assembled overnight. "SkyElite believes they can overwhelm us with legal maneuvers and character assassination," Lawrence began. "They're accustomed to victims backing down when faced with corporate power. Today, we change the equation." His chief strategist, Zoe Washington, outlined their plan. "We've organized 3 simultaneous actions. First, we've filed federal civil rights violations against SkyElite and Karen Whitmore individually. Second, we've submitted whistleblower evidence to the Department of Transportation regarding SkyElite's pattern of discrimination. Third, we're launching a digital counteroffensive exposing their attempt to manipulate the narrative." Lawrence nodded in approval. "What's the status on SkyElite's restraining order?" "The judge denied their request," replied Sandra Chen, his legal counsel. "Mark's video can remain online, which undermines their fabricated version of events." In the bedroom, Amara monitored social media on her tablet. The campaign against her had intensified overnight. Doctored photos, false witnesses, allegations about her character. Some posts included her personal information and school location, drawing threatening comments from anonymous accounts. "Dad," she called, "someone just posted our home address with a call to teach us a lesson." Lawrence examined the post, his expression darkening. He immediately contacted his security team to increase protection at their residence. "Are you documenting everything?" he asked Amara. She nodded, continuing the meticulous evidence gathering she'd learned from him. "Always." At noon, SkyElite issued an updated statement. "After careful review, flight attendant Karen Whitmore has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. SkyElite takes all allegations seriously and is committed to fair treatment of every passenger." "A strategic retreat," noted Zoe. "They're sacrificing Karen to protect the institution." Lawrence wasn't satisfied. "They're still avoiding accountability for systemic issues. Where do we stand with the other passengers?" 17 have provided statements supporting Amara's account, Sandra reported. However, SkyElite's legal team is aggressively contacting, each one with cease and desist letters and settlement offers. Amara joined them, her tablet displaying a breaking news alert. SkyElite stock drops 7% following viral discrimination incident. "They'll be in full crisis mode now," Lawrence observed. "Prepare for the next level of attack." It came within hours. A carefully crafted exclusive interview with Karen Whitmore appeared on a conservative news outlet. The flight attendant, appearing tearful and composed, claimed she was being scapegoated. "I served that young lady just like anyone else," she insisted. but she became belligerent when she couldn't have immediate service during safety procedures. The interview included supposed testimonials from 3 anonymous passengers supporting Karen's version. Financial records obtained by Lawrence's team revealed all 3 had received wire transfers from a shell company connected to SkyElite's PR firm. As evening approached, Lawrence received an anonymous text. "Drop the case, or we release everything we have on you and your daughter. Final warning." He showed it to his security chief. "Trace this." "Already on it," she replied. "Preliminary analysis suggests it came from within SkyElite's corporate headquarters." Lawrence contemplated his next move. For years, he had operated in the shadows, acquiring SkyElite shares through various investment vehicles, keeping his controlling interest hidden while observing how the company truly functioned. The time for shadows had passed. "Schedule a meeting with our investment team," he instructed his assistant, "and contact these business reporters." He handed her a short list of names, journalists known for their integrity and thoroughness. Late that night, Greg Reynolds called again. "Lawrence, you need to back down. They're preparing to release information claiming Amara has a history of filing false discrimination claims at her school." "Is it true?" Lawrence asked evenly. Greg hesitated. "Of course not, but they've paid people to say it is. Victor has connections everywhere. This gets uglier by the hour." "Thanks for the warning," Lawrence replied, his tone revealing nothing. After hanging up, Lawrence joined Amara on the suite's balcony overlooking Philadelphia's nightscape. "How are you holding up?" "I'm scared," she admitted, "but more angry than scared." Lawrence nodded. "That's appropriate. Fear keeps you cautious. Anger keeps you motivated. When will you tell them who you really are?" Amara asked. "Tomorrow," Lawrence replied. "They've shown exactly who they are and how they operate. Now it's our turn." Morning brought news that SkyElite's legal team had expanded their counteroffensive, filing motions to dismiss civil rights claims based on lack of evidence and malicious intent to damage the company's reputation. At precisely 9 a.m., Lawrence Jackson entered the marble lobby of SkyElite's corporate headquarters in Manhattan, accompanied by his legal team. The receptionist recognized him immediately from news coverage. "I'm here to see Victor Whitman," Lawrence stated calmly. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked nervously. "He'll want to see me." While the receptionist made frantic calls, security guards positioned themselves strategically around the lobby. 5 minutes later, Greg Reynolds emerged from the elevator, his expression a mixture of concern and confusion. "Lawrence, this isn't wise. Victor won't see you without legal representatives present." "He'll see me," Lawrence replied with absolute certainty. "Because I'm not asking." Greg lowered his voice. "They've prepared a devastating press package about Amara. Don't force their hand." "Take me to the boardroom, Greg. Not Victor's office. The boardroom." Something in Lawrence's tone made Greg reconsider. "Follow me." As they ascended in the executive elevator, Lawrence texted a single word to his team. "Begin." The SkyElite boardroom featured floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, a massive mahogany table accommodating 24 leather chairs. Currently, it held a hastily assembled group of executives, including CEO Victor Whitman, a silver-haired man with cold eyes and an artificial smile. "Mr. Jackson," Victor began with practiced cordiality, "while we appreciate your initiative, this unscheduled intrusion is highly irregular. Any discussions should involve our respective legal teams in a proper—" "I'm not here to negotiate," Lawrence interrupted, placing a leather portfolio on the table. "I'm here to inform you of changes effective immediately." Victor's smile hardened. "Mr. Jackson, perhaps you misunderstand your position. SkyElite is prepared to offer reasonable compensation for any inconvenience, but your continued hostility leaves us no choice but to pursue all available legal remedies against these defamatory—" "Lawrence Jackson holds 63% of SkyElite Airline's voting shares," Sandra Chen announced, distributing documents to each stunned executive. "Through various investment vehicles, Mr. Jackson has been the controlling shareholder of this company for the past 5 years." The blood drained from Victor's face. "That's impossible. Our shareholder records are incomplete," Lawrence finished. "Deliberately so. I wanted to observe how this airline truly operates when no one thinks the owner is watching. Do you think companies would behave differently if they knew their true owners were experiencing their services firsthand? Comment number 1 if you believe CEOs and owners should regularly use their own products and services anonymously. Comment number 2 if you've ever wished you had the power to expose workplace discrimination like Lawrence is about to do. If you're inspired by Lawrence's strategy of working behind the scenes to gather evidence before making his move, hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to see how SkyElite's executives react when they realize who they've been fighting against all along. As the boardroom falls silent with the revelation of Lawrence's true identity, what will happen to Karen Whitmore and the executives who orchestrated the campaign against Amara? Will Lawrence use his power for justice or revenge? And how will this shocking twist change the airline industry's approach to discrimination? The SkyElite boardroom remained frozen in shocked silence. Executive faces displayed varying stages of realization, from disbelief to dawning horror, as they processed that the man they'd been strategizing against owned their company. Victor Whitman recovered first, forcing a conciliatory smile that failed to reach his eyes. Lawrence, clearly there's been a misunderstanding. Had we known your connection to the company, you would have treated my daughter with dignity, provided water during a medical emergency? Lawrence's voice remained perfectly controlled. That's precisely the problem. Basic human decency shouldn't depend on a passenger's status or connections. Lawrence activated the boardroom's presentation system, displaying internal emails obtained through his position. For 5 years, I've documented how this airline systematically dismisses discrimination complaints. 274 incidents officially reported. 0 resulted in employee termination. 83% were dismissed without investigation. He advanced to the next slide. Karen Whitmore has 23 prior complaints from minority passengers, all buried by this management team. The chief operating officer leaned forward defensively. Those complaints couldn't be substantiated. It would be irresponsible to terminate an employee based on unproven allegations. Unproven? Lawrence cued security footage showing Karen's differential treatment of passengers from dozens of flights. Subtle, but undeniable patterns of bias. I've had a dedicated team analyzing SkyElite operations for years. We've documented everything. Greg Reynolds shifted uncomfortably. Lawrence, perhaps we should discuss this privately. No more privacy, Lawrence interrupted. No more closed-door meetings where discrimination is rationalized away. This stops today. Victor attempted to regain control. Whatever documentation you've compiled can be addressed through proper channels. There's no need for drastic... I've already replaced 3 board members this morning, Lawrence stated flatly. Their resignations are being announced as we speak. On cue, phones around the table buzzed with breaking news alerts. Victor checked his device, his complexion ashen. You can't unilaterally. As majority shareholder, I can and have, Lawrence corrected. I've also frozen all executive bonuses pending a complete audit of discrimination complaints. The chief legal officer raised a cautionary hand. Any hasty restructuring could trigger shareholder lawsuits and regulatory scrutiny. I'm counting on it, Lawrence replied. In fact, I've already filed regulatory complaints with the Department of Transportation, EEOC, and FAA regarding SkyElite's handling of discrimination incidents. Outside the boardroom, Lawrence's strategic plan unfolded with precision. Major news outlets were receiving comprehensive evidence packages detailing SkyElite's history of discrimination. Civil rights organizations announced investigations into the airline industry's treatment of minority passengers. SkyElite stock continued its downward spiral as investor confidence collapsed. Victor made a final attempt to maintain control. Lawrence, whatever personal grievance you have can be addressed, but destroying the company helps no one, not shareholders, employees, or customers. I'm not destroying the company, Lawrence corrected. I'm saving it from people like you who believe discrimination is acceptable collateral damage in pursuit of profit. As the executives absorbed this new reality, Lawrence received an urgent message from his security team. The source of the threatening text had been traced, not to a lower-level employee as expected, but to Victor Whitman's executive assistant. "One more thing," Lawrence added, displaying the threatening message on screen. "This intimidation tactic originated from this building, specifically from the executive floor. I've already provided this evidence to federal authorities as potential witness tampering." Victor's attempt at denial died on his lips as Lawrence produced additional documentation. "We also have evidence that SkyElite executives authorized surveillance of passengers who filed discrimination complaints. Most concerning Mr. Whitman, your team specifically targeted my daughter's personal information for a smear campaign." The revelation rippled through the room like an electric current. Several executives physically distanced themselves from Victor, recognizing the sinking ship. The chief financial officer stood abruptly. "I had no knowledge of these activities and cannot be associated with them." "Sit down," Lawrence commanded. "Everyone in this room is complicit. The question now is who will be part of the solution." Back at the hotel, Amara faced her own battle. Despite increased security, her personal information had been leaked online, resulting in a barrage of hateful messages. Schoolmates sent screenshots of discussion threads where classmates debated whether she had played the race card to gain attention. Her phone rang. The school principal. "Amara, I'm calling because we've received concerning threats regarding your return to campus. We're implementing security protocols, but I wanted to suggest perhaps finishing the semester remotely might be safer." "They're trying to force me out?" Amara asked, her voice steady despite the injustice. No, the principal backpedaled. "Just a temporary precaution until this media attention subsides." After the call, Amara stared out the hotel window at Philadelphia's skyline, the weight of being simultaneously a victim and a symbol pressed heavily on her 16-year-old shoulders. For a moment, she considered accepting the principal's suggestion, retreating until the storm passed. Her phone chimed with a news alert. SkyElite executive shakeup. Majority owner reveals identity following discrimination incident. Scrolling through the article, Amara felt a complex mixture of pride and apprehension. Her father was fighting systemic discrimination at its highest levels, but the backlash was only beginning. If she retreated now, what message would that send? She texted her father, "I'm going back to school. We don't hide." At SkyElite headquarters, Lawrence concluded the emergency board meeting by outlining immediate changes. Karen Whitmore's employment is terminated, effective immediately. An independent investigation will review all discrimination complaints from the past 5 years, and the executive team will undergo mandatory bias training developed by civil rights experts. "And our positions?" Victor asked, a hint of desperation creeping into his voice. "That depends on the investigation findings," Lawrence replied. "Those who actively participated in discrimination or its cover-up will be removed. Others may have the opportunity to be part of SkyElite's transformation." As executives filed out in stunned silence, Lawrence remained in the boardroom with Greg Reynolds. His longtime ally shifted uncomfortably under Lawrence's steady gaze. "You chose the wrong side, Greg." "Lawrence, I was trying to navigate a complex situation. You know how these things work." "I know exactly how they work," Lawrence replied. "That's the problem." As Lawrence gathered his materials, his phone rang, his security chief with alarming news. While attention focused on corporate headquarters, Karen Whitmore had given an unauthorized interview to a major network, revealing Amara's school location and schedule. The information had sparked renewed online threats, some disturbingly specific. Lawrence immediately called Amara, who didn't answer. His security team reported she had left the hotel against their recommendation, stating she needed to handle something personally. For the first time since the crisis began, Lawrence felt something beyond controlled anger, genuine fear. The marble rotunda of the National Press Club fell silent as Lawrence Jackson approached the podium. Camera flashes illuminated his path while journalists from every major network jostled for position. This hastily arranged press conference had become the most sought-after media event in Washington. Lawrence surveyed the packed room with the steady gaze that had intimidated corporate rivals for decades. Behind him stood a diverse coalition of civil rights attorneys, discrimination experts, and former SkyElite passengers who had experienced similar treatment. "Good afternoon," Lawrence began, his deep voice resonating through the sound system. "My name is Lawrence Jackson. Until yesterday, few people knew that I am the majority owner of SkyElite Airlines. I intentionally kept my ownership private to observe how the company operates when executives believe no one is watching." He paused, letting the revelation settle across the room. Reporters frantically typed on laptops and phones, breaking the news in real time. 5 days ago, my 16-year-old daughter, Amara, experienced something no passenger should ever face. While suffering asthma symptoms, she was repeatedly denied water by flight attendant Karen Whitmore, who told her, and I quote, "Your kind needs to learn patience." Lawrence played the unedited video captured by Mark Cunningham, displayed on massive screens behind him. The footage showed Karen's dismissive treatment, Amara's deteriorating condition, and the discriminatory removal that followed. The audience watched in stunned silence as the truth contradicted SkyElite's carefully crafted narrative. When Amara was forcibly removed from the aircraft, she collapsed in respiratory distress. Instead of acknowledging wrongdoing, SkyElite executives launched a coordinated campaign to discredit a 16-year-old girl, fabricate evidence, and threaten witnesses. Lawrence methodically presented internal emails, surveillance records, and financial transactions documenting the airline's response. This was not the action of one prejudiced employee, but a systemic problem enabled by corporate culture. In the audience, Victor Whitman sat stone-faced, flanked by SkyElite attorneys, frantically whispering strategy adjustments. They had arrived expecting to counter Lawrence's claims, unprepared for the mountain of evidence being presented. "As of this morning, I have implemented the following changes at SkyElite," Lawrence continued. "Karen Whitmore's employment has been terminated. CEO Victor Whitman and 5 additional executives have been suspended pending investigation. The board has been reconstituted with diversity experts and civil rights advocates." Reporters shouted questions, but Lawrence raised a hand for silence. "This isn't just about one incident or one airline. This is about a pattern of discrimination that pervades our transportation systems, where people of color receive demonstrably different treatment." He introduced Dr. Elaine Patel, a renowned civil rights researcher. Dr. Patel will outline our new initiative, a comprehensive study of discrimination in commercial aviation, with recommendations for industry-wide reforms. While Amara's attack had catalyzed this moment, Lawrence expanded the focus beyond his daughter's experience to the broader struggle for equality. Statistics, testimonials, and evidence-filled screens as Dr. Patel detailed how minority passengers face disproportionate removal rates, security screenings, and service denials across all major airlines. As the press conference continued, Amara watched from her hotel room, filled with complex emotions. The public spotlight brought validation, but also intensified attacks from SkyElite supporters. Social media overflowed with comments ranging from supportive outrage to vicious racism. A notification appeared on her phone. Karen Whitmore was giving a competing press conference across town. The former flight attendant appeared tearful, positioning herself as a scapegoat. "I've served passengers of all backgrounds for 17 years with dignity and respect," she claimed. "This one incident is being used to destroy my career and reputation." Karen produced character witnesses, exclusively white colleagues and passengers, who attested to her professionalism. She suggested Amara had been confrontational from boarding and had manipulated the situation to create a racial incident where none existed. Flipping channels between her father's evidence-based presentation and Karen's emotional appeals, Amara witnessed America's racial divide playing out in real time. Comment sections divided along predictable lines: those who saw systemic racism versus those who denied its existence despite overwhelming evidence. At the National Press Club, Lawrence concluded with an announcement that electrified the room. SkyElite will establish a $50 million foundation for transportation equity, funding research, training, and victim support. He looked directly into the cameras. "And we are implementing the most comprehensive anti-discrimination policies in aviation history with zero tolerance for bias at any level." As questions erupted from journalists, Lawrence's security chief approached with urgent news. Karen Whitmore had escalated her counteroffensive, calling for SkyElite employees to stage a walkout in protest of her termination. Already, flight crews at major hubs were abandoning stations, claiming Lawrence's actions threatened due process for employees accused of discrimination. Operations directors reported developing chaos, ticketing areas emptying, gate agents disappearing, flights facing imminent cancellation. The orchestrated protest threatened to strand thousands of passengers nationwide. Lawrence absorbed this information without visible reaction, then returned to the microphone. "I've just been informed that Ms. Whitmore has called for employee walkouts, potentially stranding passengers across the country. This action perfectly illustrates the problem we're addressing, placing personal grievances above passenger welfare." He made an unprecedented announcement. "Any SkyElite employee who abandons their post today, leaving passengers without service, will be permanently removed from the company. Those who remain will receive an immediate 10% salary increase and enhanced protections for reporting discrimination without fear of retaliation." The calculated response sent shockwaves through the walkout. Many employees, realizing they were being manipulated into potential career suicide, returned to their posts. Others, true believers in Karen's cause, continued their protest, inadvertently identifying themselves as resistant to cultural change. As the press conference concluded, Lawrence addressed a final pointed question from a skeptical reporter. "Isn't this just damage control to protect your investment? Where was this concern before your daughter was affected?" Lawrence's expression remained measured. "That's the most important question asked today. The honest answer is that I believed monitoring discrimination from the shadows was sufficient. I was wrong. It took my daughter's experience to show me that passive observation without action makes me complicit." He paused, genuine emotion breaking through his composed exterior. "I failed not just Amara, but every passenger who experienced discrimination, while I remained silent. That changes today, not just for SkyElite, but for the entire industry." As Lawrence exited through a side door, his phone rang. Amara was on her way to school against security recommendations, determined to face whatever awaited her. Lawrence immediately diverted his motorcade toward Westridge Academy. Simultaneously, across the SkyElite system, Karen's walkout supporters had created enough disruption to ground 27 flights, stranding over 5,000 passengers. Social media documented the chaos, with travelers divided between blaming Lawrence's reforms and supporting his stance against discrimination. The battle lines were drawn, not just for one airline's future, but for whether corporations would be held accountable for systemic discrimination. As Lawrence raced toward his daughter's school, he knew the most difficult confrontations still lay ahead. The emergency board meeting of SkyElite Airlines convened in an atmosphere of crisis. Stock prices had plummeted 23% since the incident began. Canceled flights had cost millions in compensation and rebookings. Social media blazed, with your Boycott SkyElite alongside a smaller but vocal Stand With Karen movement. Lawrence Jackson sat at the head of the newly constituted board, half original members, half new appointees with expertise in corporate ethics and civil rights. Facing them via video conference were regional directors, reporting real-time impacts of the employee walkout. "Chicago O'Hare has 32% of scheduled staff missing," reported Midwest Operations. "We've canceled 14 flights and counting." "Atlanta is worse, 45% absence rate among flight attendants," added Southeast Operations. "We're considering shutting down the hub completely until tomorrow." Lawrence listened impassively, then addressed the crisis. "Team, implement the contingency plan. Activate reserve crews with double pay incentives. Any flight that can't be properly staffed will be canceled with full passenger compensation." Victor Whitman, attending as required but stripped of decision-making. Authority couldn't contain his frustration. "This is financial suicide. The compensation packages alone will cost tens of millions." "Discrimination was already costing us," Lawrence countered. "You just hit it in legal settlements and reputation management." He turned to the new Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Renee Washington. "Where do we stand on the employee communications?" "The Truth Campaign launched 20 minutes ago," she reported. Every employee has received documentation of the 27 discrimination incidents that resulted in settlements over the past 3 years, all previously hidden by management. This transparency strategy aimed to counter Karen's narrative that she was being singularly persecuted. Employees were learning that their company had repeatedly paid to silence discrimination claims while denying systemic problems existed. And the surveillance program? Lawrence asked the interim security director. Confirmed, sir. The previous executive team authorized monitoring of minority passengers who filed complaints. They compiled dossiers to discredit potential litigants, including photographs, social media histories, even employment records. This revelation stunned even veteran board members. One asked incredulously, "How was this approved?" "It wasn't brought to the board," Lawrence explained. "These operations ran through a shell company disguised as a passenger experience research vendor." Victor's expression betrayed his knowledge of the program. Lawrence fixed him with an unwavering stare. Federal authorities have been provided complete documentation of these activities. While the board grappled with these revelations, Lawrence received a security alert from Westridge Academy. Amara had arrived at school to find 2 distinct groups awaiting her: supportive classmates holding "Stand Against Racism" signs, and a smaller contingent of students whose parents worked for SkyElite, wearing makeshift "I Stand with Karen" shirts. School administrators had established a security perimeter, but tensions were escalating as news crews gathered outside campus. Amara had entered through a side entrance, escorted by security to the principal's office, where she now waited for her father. Lawrence excused himself from the board meeting, leaving Dr. Washington to continue. "This company faces a fundamental choice," he told them before departing. "Either embrace comprehensive change or continue losing market share, talent, and public trust." At Westridge Academy, Lawrence found Amara composed but tense. The principal explained the situation. "We've canceled regular classes due to the disruption. Several parents have demanded Amara be removed for everyone's safety, claiming her presence is creating division." "And your response?" Lawrence asked. "That discrimination is what creates division, not those who expose it," the principal replied firmly. "But I'm concerned about Amara's well-being with this circus atmosphere." Amara spoke up. "I'm not hiding or leaving. That's what they want." Lawrence studied his daughter, seeing not just the teenager but the woman she was becoming, principled and resilient despite facing hatred for simply existing. "It's your decision. Whatever you choose, I support you." Amara straightened her shoulders. "I want to address the school. All of them, supporters and opponents." The principal hesitated. "That could escalate tensions." "Or deflate them," Lawrence suggested. "Sometimes confronting conflict directly is the only way through it." While arrangements were made for an auditorium assembly, Lawrence received an urgent call from SkyElite headquarters. Karen Whitmore had escalated her campaign, filing a $30 million defamation lawsuit against both Lawrence and Amara personally. More disturbingly, she had released selectively edited security footage that purported to show Amara behaving aggressively during boarding, footage Lawrence immediately recognized as manipulated. "The timestamp watermarks don't match," he told his legal team. "It's from a different flight entirely with a passenger who resembles Amara." This fraudulent evidence had already gone viral, embraced by those seeking to discredit Amara's experience. Lawrence authorized an immediate forensic analysis while focusing on supporting his daughter through the immediate crisis at school. In the Westridge Academy auditorium, students filed in under heavy security presence. Faculty members positioned themselves strategically throughout the room, prepared to intervene if tensions escalated. News crews had been barred from the campus, but students' phones would undoubtedly capture whatever transpired. Amara approached the podium, facing classmates who had known her for years now viewing her through the lens of national controversy. The room fell silent as she adjusted the microphone. "I never wanted to become a symbol or headline," she began quietly. "Last week I was just a student worried about college applications and physics exams. Today people who've never met me have decided who I am based on their own biases and agendas." She recounted the flight incident without embellishment, her voice strengthening as she described the humiliation of being denied basic dignity. This isn't about water. It's about being seen as human. In the audience, reactions split visibly. Empathetic nods from many, defensive crossed arms from others. Amara acknowledged the division directly. I see some of you wearing I Stand With Karen shirts. Your parents work for SkyElite, and you're worried about their jobs. I understand that fear, but ask yourselves, would you want to be treated the way I was? Would you want your humanity questioned because of how you look? A student interrupted. My mom's a flight attendant, and she says you're making this all up for attention. Instead of becoming defensive, Amara nodded. I understand why she believes that. It's easier than accepting that discrimination happens every day in her workplace. The measured response diffused what could have escalated into a shouting match. Amara continued, I'm not asking anyone to lose their job. I'm asking for fairness and dignity for everyone. Your parents can still have careers at SkyElite, a better SkyElite that treats all passengers equally. As Amara concluded her remarks, Lawrence received breaking news from headquarters. The board vote was complete. His comprehensive anti-discrimination plan had passed with 2/3 support. Additionally, forensic experts had confirmed the footage Karen released was fraudulently edited, with original timestamps proving it came from a different flight altogether. The company issued an immediate statement exposing the forgery and announced legal action against Karen for fraud. This revelation prompted a wave of employees to abandon the walkout, returning to their positions and distancing themselves from what was increasingly viewed as a coordinated deception. Inside SkyElite's corporate structure, the final battle lines were drawn. Victor Whitman and his remaining allies launched a desperate counteroffensive, a shareholder resolution challenging Lawrence's authority, claiming his actions constituted a breach of fiduciary duty by prioritizing social justice over profitability. The resolution forced an emergency shareholder meeting where Lawrence would need to defend not just his actions, but his entire vision for the company's future. As he left the school with Amara, Lawrence prepared for the defining confrontation of his business career, one that would determine whether corporate America could be held accountable for discrimination or would continue hiding behind profitable indifference. 6 months transformed SkyElite Airlines from a company in crisis to an industry leader in corporate responsibility. The shareholders' meeting that had threatened Lawrence's control instead became a referendum on corporate values, with his vision prevailing by a decisive margin. Financial reports silenced critics. After an initial dip, SkyElite's stock had rebounded strongly, with customer loyalty metrics reaching record highs. In the aftermath, Victor Whitman and 3 executives faced federal charges for witness intimidation and evidence tampering. The surveillance program targeting minority passengers resulted in class action settlements and regulatory penalties. Most importantly, SkyElite implemented comprehensive reforms that became a blueprint for the entire industry. Karen Whitmore's journey took an unexpected turn. After her fraudulent evidence was exposed, she faced potential perjury charges and complete professional isolation. In a surprise move, Lawrence offered an alternative to prosecution: participation in SkyElite's new reconciliation and growth program. Punishment without education perpetuates the cycle, Lawrence explained to skeptical board members. True change requires both accountability and opportunity for growth. The program paired individuals who had exhibited discriminatory behavior with civil rights educators, psychologists, and most importantly, those who had experienced discrimination firsthand. Karen initially participated reluctantly, viewing it as merely preferable to prosecution. The transformation began gradually. First listening sessions where she heard similar stories from dozens of minority passengers, then unconscious bias training revealing patterns she had denied for years. 3 months into the program, Karen requested a meeting with Amara, supervised by mediators. The conversation proved more powerful than any sensitivity training could provide. I didn't see you as a person, Karen admitted, her rehearsed deflections finally giving way to genuine reflection. I saw a category, not a 16-year-old having a medical emergency. Amara showed remarkable grace. What matters is what you see now. Meanwhile, Amara's foundation, Equitable Skies, used its $50 million endowment to fund research documenting discrimination patterns across transportation sectors. The data-driven approach converted anecdotes into actionable insights that companies could no longer dismiss. Airlines nationwide began adopting blind passenger service evaluations, where executives experienced their own company's service without staff awareness, a practice Lawrence had pioneered. At Westridge Academy, the controversy evolved into a case study in the school's new social justice curriculum. Students who had worn "I Stand with Karen" shirts now participated in workshops examining how family loyalties could sometimes conflict with ethical principles. The campus climate transformed through honest conversation rather than enforced silence about uncomfortable truths. For Lawrence, the crisis prompted profound personal reflection about power and responsibility. He established a business ethics institute focused on corporate accountability, sharing his experience as both an enabler of systemic problems and eventually their reformer. "Silent ownership is complicity," he told business leaders at the institute's launch. "We cannot observe injustice from comfortable distances and claim no responsibility." SkyElite's transformation extended beyond policy changes to fundamental cultural shift. Hiring practices diversified management ranks. Customer service metrics were redesigned to measure equal treatment rather than mere satisfaction. Most significantly, employees received enhanced whistleblower protections and incentives for reporting discrimination, ending the culture of silent complicity. On a crisp autumn morning 6 months after the incident, Amara Jackson prepared for another flight. This time, she would travel from Washington to Chicago for a national student leadership conference where she would deliver a keynote address on systemic change. Lawrence accompanied her to Reagan National, though they would again travel separately, Amara insisting on flying economy class to ensure reforms were truly taking hold. The true test of change isn't how they treat people. They recognize, she reasoned, but how they treat those they don't. At the SkyElite check-in counter, Amara received her boarding pass without incident. Security screening proceeded professionally. At the gate, she boarded with her assigned group, experiencing none of the additional scrutiny that had once been routine. Settling into seat 17B, coincidentally the same position as the fateful flight, Amara arranged her belongings and reviewed notes for her upcoming speech. The flight attendant working her section approached with a professional smile. "Welcome aboard," she said, then hesitated slightly upon recognizing Amara. It was Karen Whitmore. Both women froze momentarily. This unplanned encounter wasn't part of any reconciliation program or corporate strategy. SkyElite's new staffing system, designed to prevent bias in assignments, had inadvertently created this moment of truth. Karen recovered first. "Would you like a bottle of water before takeoff?" she asked, her voice carrying no trace of the condescension that had defined their first interaction. "Yes, please," Amara replied cautiously. Karen retrieved the water promptly, then addressed the white businessman in the aisle seat and the elderly Asian woman by the window with identical professional courtesy. No preferential treatment, no subtle dismissals, just equal service for all passengers. As the plane reached cruising altitude, Amara observed Karen throughout the cabin. The transformation appeared genuine, not performed for Amara's benefit, but consistent with every passenger regardless of appearance or background. During beverage service, Karen returned to Amara's row. "I want you to know," she said quietly, "that I think about what happened every day. It's not an excuse, but I never saw myself clearly until I was forced to." Amara nodded thoughtfully. "Growth usually begins with discomfort. Your foundation's training program changed me," Karen continued. "I'm grateful for the second chance, even though I didn't deserve it." "Everyone deserves the opportunity to change," Amara replied. "What matters is whether they use it." The interaction lasted less than a minute, but represented something profound, not just personal reconciliation, but evidence that institutional transformation was possible when confronted directly. One flight attendant's journey from discrimination to awareness, multiplied across an industry, could gradually shift the experiences of millions. As Karen continued her duties, Amara texted her father. "The system is working. Equal treatment for everyone on board." Lawrence replied immediately, "That's all we ever wanted." Amara smiled at the simplicity of that truth. For all the corporate battles, legal maneuvers, and media attention, the goal had always been remarkably straightforward: to be treated with basic human dignity, regardless of appearance. Looking out the window at the patchwork landscape below, Amara reflected on how a single denied glass of water had catalyzed industry-wide change. The transformation wasn't complete. True equity would require vigilance and continued effort. But meaningful progress had replaced hopeless resignation. As the plane banked toward Chicago, carrying its diverse passengers through shared skies, Amara opened her notebook and began drafting additions to her keynote address. The conference theme was "Creating Lasting Change," and she now had the perfect opening line: "Transformation begins when we refuse to accept that the way things are is the way they must remain." This story illustrates profound truths about discrimination and change in modern society. First, it reveals how power structures often protect discriminatory behavior until those with influence are personally affected. Lawrence needed his daughter's experience to fully understand what many face daily. Second, it demonstrates that true change requires both accountability and opportunity for growth. Punishing Karen without education would have perpetuated the cycle, while transformation came through understanding and reconciliation. Third, it highlights how systemic problems require systemic solutions. Policy changes, cultural shifts, and leadership commitment must work together. Fourth, we see that privilege can be weaponized for justice when used consciously. Lawrence's wealth and position became tools for structural reform rather than personal comfort. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, the story reminds us that dignity isn't something to be earned or granted based on status, but a fundamental right for every human being. Change begins with refusing to accept that the way things are is the way they must remain. Have you ever witnessed discrimination and wished you had the power to address it? Comment below with your experiences facing or fighting against prejudice in your daily life. Has anyone ever stood up for you when you faced unfair treatment? Or have you been the one to speak up for someone else? Share your story in the comments. If you believe everyone deserves equal treatment regardless of their race or background, please hit that like button to spread this message. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that expose injustice and celebrate the triumph of dignity over discrimination. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share this video with them today. Thank you for joining us on this journey toward a more just world. Remember, transformation isn't just about policies. It's about each of us making different choices every day. Together we can create the change we wish to see.